If your Dreamcast has failed and it no longer reads games, the best solution is to pick yourself up a GD-ROM drive replacement. These come in a few different flavors, but today we're going to look at the GD-EMU and go ahead and install it. Today we're going to take a look at the old Dreamcast, and in particular we're going to try and fit and test out the old GD-EMU. So if you're not familiar with what this is, it's a aftermarket GD-ROM drive replacement for the Dreamcast. So GD is like, these are GD-ROMs, not CD-ROMs in these things. In a nutshell, all laser, disc-based systems, they tend to fail at about now. We're 2017, they're all starting to fail. So smart guys have been coming up with solutions like this to directly plug into the socket where the disc-based system was. Like, we completely remove that, we plug this in, and then with a simple SD card, we slot in and we load games off here. So that's, in a nutshell, how it works. The little button there is for changing game discs, like, replacing the disc when there's a disc 2. You push the button and it picks the next track. So it's pretty simple little device, but let's go through it, let's install it and see if we can get it working. So first things first is you got to get yourself a Dreamcast. I've got a ton of these things, but for the ease of use today, I've picked the Australian one, which is the European with a blue swirl, just because it's got a 240 volt power supply and that's all plugged in and running. So for ease of use, I've picked this one, but ultimately I'm probably going to fit it to the black Sega Sports edition. So, and this one's got a like 110 volt power supply in it. So I'm going to modify that console with a replacement power supply solution. As I showed in a previous video, if you're interested to see how that's done, you can check out the video. I'll put a card up here. I might actually make a conversion video on the Dreamcast because I did it on the Saturn, so that could be kind of cool. But that's where the GDemu is destined. But for now, we're going to use a standard Dreamcast. Okay, so first things first is probably disconnect it, take the power out at least. I've had that powered up and I've just checked its operation and it's all fine. So I just recommend you do that first. Pull out the screws, and while I do that, I'll just quickly run you through the label underneath here. Mine is a revision 1 PAL European. I'll put that in shot for you there. There you go. So 1 PAL E. This mod works best with revision 1 Dreamcasts. There are revision 0s, and I think there's a few other variants. So just try and get a 1 and everything runs smoothly. It doesn't matter if it's PAL or NTSC, so just pick the console of your choice and we'll get on with it. But just out of interest, the one I showed you before was revision 1 NTSC USA. So that's where I'm going to put mine, but for now, let's keep digging. So I'll quickly pull these screws out and I'll get back to you in a second. 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, just one hidden down behind the modem. It's that easy. Okay, so then we can just flip this guy back over, lift the lid, all comes apart nice and easily. There's nothing attached to the lid on this revision. It's very clean. And we're left with the exposed Dreamcast. So, this is the 240 volt step down power supply that regulates down to 5 volts, 3.3 volts and 12 volts down in this end. So that's what we're going to convert on another video. We'll do it to the USA one though. But for now, I'm just going to leave this alone. It works perfectly. There's no need to touch it. A little disclaimer right now is when you do install these GD-EMUs, the 12 volt rail doesn't get used anymore. So, and that's the end, the pin just there. So it can put a bit of stress on your power supply when this is removed. When it's all connected like this, it's obviously factory designed, everything's fine, but when we take this out, there's no more 12 volts being utilized, so it can stress your power supply. So I'll post a link to how to fix that in the description. Let's crack on. So just around the GD-ROM drive, there's a couple of screws. So one down there, one down here. Just back them out. One up the back there. I think it's just the 3. And then we're pretty much right to lift this whole mechanism out. Yep, that's it. So the whole thing comes out. You know, that's your laser if you're interested. You would pull this further apart and you'd replace your laser if you wanted to. But you know what, guys, to be honest, these days, replacement lasers for the Dreamcast are getting a little bit hard to find. Not really, but getting expensive, that's for sure. And I don't know. It might be worth it for you, but maybe not. Something else to quickly point out is I've got a plastic fan down in here. Some revisions have a metal fan, the earlier revisions, which are arguably better consoles. It doesn't really matter. I wouldn't stress over that too much. Alright, so basically this thing just clips straight in. So you just kind of orientate it the same way. It's got posts on the card, and it actually came with another post. So we'll work out how all that goes together once we've tested it. Just align everything, push it in, and you're done. Like, we are installed. That's it. Yeah, the other post went down in there, so yeah, it'll support this edge, and that's fine. I'll put that in when the time comes, but for now, that's all I need to do to test it. So, what's next, right? Well, I think we have to prepare the SD card. So, I'm just going to jump on the website of the guy who makes this, and I'll obviously post a link to that. I'll just do a quick read up on what we do to get started, and I'll step you through it. Okay, so what we need to do to prepare the SD card is go to the GDemu webpage, download the latest firmware, whichever one happens to be published when you go to the site. I've got 5.13. There's quite a few little fixes here, and the good thing about GDemu is he's always updating and fixing things. So it's another reason I really like this product. Just click that and download it, and once you have that, it'll just land here as a zip file. I've already gone and extracted that to the basic firmware file. Now the instructions say to rename it to this name here, GDemu.fw. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so that's renamed. And then we drop it on the SD card, in the root of the SD. So I've got a new SD card here. It's a 32 gig Lexar. It's formatted, it's all ready to go. So I'm just going to drop that in to the root, and we'll give it a flash. So got our SD card. Let's lock it. Let's do what it said actually. Yep. Put it in. And let's power this up. Watch the LED. For some reason the firmware didn't update off this Lexar. I've just put it on a basic SanDisk, class 4, 8GB card, and let's give that a shot instead. So yeah, there you go. Flicking fast, the LED, and it should stop in a second. There you go, and then long flashes. Okay, so we didn't get that before. That might be a slight incompatibility with this SD card, so if that happens to you, I'd just swap it out for a really small capacity, even like a 2 or a 4 gig, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just a basic SD and try it again. Mine worked off that second card. Okay, so there's a link in the description on where to get this next stage, and it's a menu system for the GDEMU. By default, the piece of hardware doesn't come with a menu. It'll run games, but you won't have any way of really controlling it too easily without knowing what you're loading. So I'd highly recommend you put a menu system on yours. And in order to do that, all you do is you copy like a custom application in game position 1 to the SD card. So we download the tool. It's called GDemu. I've got, version 0.6. So first thing you go ahead and do is just download that and extract it. Then we'll go into the folder, and this is the basic structure we're dealing with. So all we need to do first off is go into the O1 folder, select the file itself, which is the CD image itself. And this is like a game. Someone's written a custom game, in quotes, which is just a menu system. So that's all this tool is. Then we just do a rename, and we call it disk.cdi, so D-I-S-C. Don't call it DISK, as in a floppy disk. That won't work. DISC, as in a CD-ROM. That will work fine. So disk.cdi. All Dreamcast images and games and ROMs must be called disk. The extension can be CDI or GDI or whatever, but it must be called disk. So keep that in mind. Then we're ready to go. This is a configuration file which is not relevant right now, but you can change a few settings, which is all published on their website and in the README file, but leave it at default. Everything's explained in here, but really you don't need to worry about it. Just extract it, go inside the O1 folder, rename the file to disk, and then basically grab all this and drop that onto your SD card, into the root folder. So that's my Lexar SD into the root, and just drop it there. Next thing we need to do is create some new folders. So we've got O1, so let's go ahead and create O2, O3, etc. And they're going to hold our games. Okay, so I'll just do 5. So that's spots for 4 games in 2, 3, 4, and 5. One's always going to be used by the menu. So let's just take a look at what we've got here. Let's just back out. I've got some ROMs I've got ready. GigaWing, PAL. So this one comes in, once you extract the file, it comes in GDI format, which is the original disk format of the Dreamcast. I recommend you try and download GDIs. You can get other formats, but this is the best format. Don't worry about all the files. They're all just, music tracks and parts of the game. Main thing is that it's always called disk, like we said before, and you're good to go. Just grab the whole contents of that, drag it over, and put it in one of your folders. Let's put it in number 2. So copy here. So that's going to copy, this image to the O2 folder, and we'll let that run. Okay, well I've just stuck with the SanDisk card at the moment because this Lexar, as fast as this thing is, it's a really fast card. It's not fully compatible with this, so I would recommend checking out the SD compatibility list on the webpage. Most cards are actually supported. I've just got a bit unlucky, or I actually suspect this is actually a Chinese copy, so I might have bought a cheap piece of S. Anyway, don't do what I did. Get yourself a decent card. Just stick with SanDisk. They're good cards. It's not that fast, this one's only class 4, but for demonstration purposes, it doesn't matter. Make sure you've deleted the firmware file off the card when you want to play games and so forth, because it'll just keep rewriting otherwise. So then the whole thing fires up. The battery's flat, so I'll just set that. Normally you wouldn't have to do this and it'll boot into the O1 game, but let's do that manually. And here it is. So it's automatically booting that file. This is what would happen if the battery was restored. So yeah, I'd recommend you replace your battery. Then it fires up the game, which is just the menu, and then here we go. So I went ahead and put a few more games on, but this makes things, it makes your life so much easier. So the O1 position is always your menu. I've just thrown on 3 games here, so let's give it a shot. Let's try out GigaWing. So press OK or A button on that. The Dreamcast does its usual splash screen. Boots the game. And there it goes. So it's actually pretty fast. This is a POS SD card, but you know what? It still runs pretty nice. Check my memory card VMU, I think that's doing. Here we go. I'll just push a button and kick into it. Alright, so we're all set. I won't actually play the game, but you know, that fires up really nicely. So, it's that simple. I would highly recommend the menu system. It makes just your life so much easier. The button down there switches between, you know, 02 to 03 and so forth. So if you've got Shenmue and it's a multi-disc game, you know, put that in folders 2 and 3, for example, and when the game prompts you to flip the disc, all you do is you reach in and push the switch. Done. It changes it over. That's it. Other than that, there are a few little optional things you can do. You can solder off these pads down here and put a switch outside the case, which does the function of this switch here. I'm not going to do that. I think it's fine just to, you know, basically just lift the lid and just reach in and press it. The only thing I'm going to do extra is I've got myself a 3D printed sort of, you know, placeholder sort of thing. This is designed by someone else, but I've 3D printed this myself on a new printer I've just picked up. I'm actually going to put some of these up for sale. I've actually spoken to the owner, and he's got a license that allows them to be sold because I'm doing the effort of printing. But the designs are all pretty good, so I'm going to do that and maybe a few other bits and pieces. So check out my website for that. But what we'll do is we'll put it in and see how it goes. So it's going to sit down in here like that. It actually sits quite nicely, and then we'll put the screws through and put it in place. So we don't need these plastic posts anymore. We just pinch those, pull them out. There we go. And this is going to sit on like that. It's going to click in, and you just put a couple of screws down through those posts in there, and we're all done. So I won't screw it in because I'm going to use the black console. But when we put our lid back on, we get a really nice sealed off sort of unit, if you know what I mean. Can you get light into there? Yeah, it's pretty good. So, and there's also little slots down here for more SD cards. So this is a 5-slot edition. I've got designs for, you know, 3 and 4 slots, I think. So you can hold the cards, and it just gives it a nice finished off look. It's that simple. So yeah, these are available on my website. Check it out, retrosales.com.au, and you might want to pick one up. I'll print it for you and I'll send it on its way. Okay, so I've actually been playing around with this SD card, and I found that if you format the card properly, like do a proper format on it, not just a quick format, it actually works fine. So SDHC cards are supported. This one's a 32 gig, which is supported, maximum of 32 gig. But I did have to format that slowly. So, you know, you might be better off getting 2 16 gig cards and just, you know, splitting your games across the 2 16s, or get a 32 and just try your luck. Mine is actually supported, but the quick format didn't work, the long format did, so that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so going back to the 32 gig, let's fire it up. I was trying to step you through a few menu options, which are pretty cool actually, and they actually didn't exist on the earlier revision of this that I have been playing with in the past. So this new version is quite cool. So I'm talking about the menu. Let me just get into that for you, and I'll tell you what I mean. Alright, so I've actually gone ahead and put 2 games on this card in this format. I put one NTSC American game, and I put one PAL game there. So something to note, at the bottom there's the menu X button, so let's just push that. And it brings up this little menu option. So let's go into it. So options A, region free. Now that's a really cool option, which I I didn't know it was here on this new version, so that's actually a really nice feature. You can actually launch any game you like. The menu itself does the patching, and it'll just boot the ROM. So, you know, region free, we can turn that on and off. It's really cool. Force VGA, that's another great option. So most games in the Dreamcast library do support VGA, but some of them don't. And you sort of have to, you know, boot off a boot CD into composite video, do a disk swap, and then run into VGA. And it's a pain. So having Force VGA on is great. In-game reset, it supports resetting back to the menu inside the game with a button combination. System info, this is a really good little tool set here, because what it does is it tells you the firmware version on your actual hardware, the actual GDEMU. So earlier on when I flashed it, I had the success flashing off the SanDisk SD. Now that I've actually formatted this Lexar one, that would probably work as well. But if you're not sure if you've flashed your firmware, you just come into here and just take a look. So I'm now running 5.13.0, and that's all working well. So it's a good way to check. Boot ROM version, whatever. System region, you know, this particular console is a PAL one from Europe. And I'm running a VGA cable. So it's quite a good little menu, that one. And then about is just the software itself, so just about the menu system and how to get support there from the author. His email address is on the screen there. Okay, so let's give this a go. This is the NTSC game. Just double check my settings. So region free on, Force VGA on, in-game reset on, boot intro. Actually, let's turn that off. And the license, let's turn that off. A to save, B to exit, A to launch. So this will also test out the game launch speed. So we've turned off those splashes, and then there it goes. So I've kind of booted right in, which is great. We've saved a little bit of time there. And, you know, you're going to get some of these boot sequences showing, like these little trailer sort of videos. You can't skip that, that's just part of the game. But it all loads and plays quite fast. So that's an NTSC game running on a PAL console. I don't have my VMU plugged in, so it just gave me a save state sort of error. Let's just go down to a free ride or something and just launch the basic game, whatever. So there's a load screen of the whole game. That's pretty fast. That's not bad at all. And then here we go. So I've only got one spare hand to sort of play this, so I'm not going to be very good at it. Yeah, wow, we're into the ditch, whatever this is. Alright, so let me show you the in-game reset. So basically you press and hold A, B, X, and Y, all four colored buttons. And then while holding them, press the start button. Now I had to press start a couple of times there, and then off it went. So maybe I should have held start. I'm not sure about that. So it's definitely all four color buttons and then start. I think you might have to hold them for a second or something. And then there it went, rebooted back to the main image, which is the menu. So in-game reset, you know, IGR, as it's called on the internet, works quite well. Region free works really well. It's quite impressive. So that's pretty much it, guys. You've seen the menu, which I highly recommend. Without this menu, it's not as good a solution. With this menu, it's phenomenal. I think it's the best solution out there for playing backed up games off an SD card or off a USB or something. The USB solution is also very good. I don't have that, but to be honest, I think this one's phenomenal. Does everything I want it to do. It's really fast and I can't fault it. So I'd highly recommend you pick up a GD-EMU. What you've got to do is subscribe to the WordPress site, the guy's page, which is obviously in my description. Just take a look at that link and just watch it, subscribe to it, and turn on your email alerts. And as soon as As soon as he posts updates, read them, and he talks about when he releases new batches all the time. So just get on it. As soon as the batch is released and ready for pre-order, jump on that, pay via PayPal, and get on the list, because it's really not that hard. If you just sort of subscribe and watch your emails, it's not that hard. I did it. I could have bought 10 of these things. You just got to pay attention. So he also sells similar sort of readers for the Saturn, which he calls Phoebe and Rhea, depending on if it's a 21 pin or a 20 pin connector. So it works pretty much exactly the same as this device. Play games from SD. That's it for me today, guys. I'll stop rambling on. I've got a real problem with rambling and taking too long to explain things. So I hope that was interesting. I hope you learned something. Highly recommend the 3D printed little tray and SD card holder. You know, that works really well. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.